Welcome everyone to Friends of the Fog, episode 11. I was taking a break from social media for the month of September and taking a break from the podcast when I heard horrible news from some people very close to me. They sent me a headline saying that the head of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, had been shot in Utah. And so I'm going to read a little bit of an article for y'all. So those of you who are listening to this after 2025 who are wanting to know what we're talking about today, Samuel and I have some appropriate context. So from this article, Charlie Kirk, I actually showed the wrong screenshot, but it's Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA founder, dead at 31 after Utah campus shooting. This is written by Sarah Rumfwitten and Adam Sabes from Fox News. The conservative activist and founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, is dead after being shot during a campus event at Utah Valley University Wednesday, the White House announced. In a statement to Fox News Digital, UVU spokesperson Ellen Triner said, "A suspect was in custody initially, but to the best of my knowledge, that individual has been released." And it can kind of go from there. The UVU said that police are escorting students off campus. UVU campus is closed, classes canceled, those on campus secure in place until police officers can escort you safely off campus. Police are currently going building to building, escorting people off campus. Roads to campus are currently closed. This was international news. And I will say that since the article was written, there is now a suspect in custody. And Samuel and I are not going to say his name because a lot of people commit heinous, evil actions like this for clout, for publicity, so that they can look big and strong and have notoriety. Some people have more or less the mindset of, well, as long as it's publicity, it's good publicity. They don't care if it's bad publicity that gets their name out there. They just want to make a name for themselves. They don't care in some situations like this one whose body they have to step on to make a name for themselves. People on the right are very angry. They're very sad. Erica Kirk addressed the nation 2 days ago, and I had a hard time not having a tear roll down my cheek because she has lost a husband and her children have lost a father. Their recollection of their father is going to be from videos that they watch. Hopefully, Erica and her parents, and maybe Charlie's parents, if they're still living, have personal videos of Charlie. And then there's also all the different videos of Charlie Kirk online. These people's lives are never going to be the same. I'll give you some more of my initial thoughts, but joining me today is Samuel. I wanted to bring him on and talk to him about some of what's going on. Thanks so much for taking the time today. I appreciate it.
Forgot to unmute. That's why I should have put the heads on. But no, I texted you as soon as I got in my car at 4:30 Wednesday afternoon, and that was the first thing I heard come through my radio. Like, I did not leave my work parking lot till probably 4:50, just sitting there between the radio and my phone, just trying to figure out what is going on. Like, what are they talking about? Like, there's no way.
What I hope you didn't see this one. Did you see both videos, the up close one and the far away one?
Unfortunately, I did. When I got on Instagram, I think probably around 6 o'clock when I got home, a little after I got home, I had a couple of the Fox News and a couple of the other media clips, and then, typical Instagram, you scroll and there's somebody's personal account with the front view, like the close-up view from like the third row or whatever of the little area that they had set up at Utah, and I went cold because I knew, like, from my experience with shooting, just my knowledge of stuff, he was dead instantly. Just as soon as that hit, he was dead. There's no. I know there was a lot of stuff saying he was in stable condition. There's a nerve and the jugular right there. even if they conceal the jugular, once that nerve is severed, you're pretty much, even if the body doesn't expire, you're brain dead. So yeah, it's like that you never, I don't know, it hits different because you see they do scenes like that all the time in movies. Like you watch a war movie or an action movie, and you see somebody make a shot like that, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Or that, it's like it's a bad guy, so it's like, yay, he had it coming. Then you see the exact same thing play out, and you're like, is it real? Did that
Well,
really do it? Did I see what I just saw? Like you're trying to, like, you can't compute it.
well, the problem too is I think part of it why it's international news and why it's affecting so many people is because the grainy old. I mean, I don't know if they're using 50 millimeter or what they were using when JFK got shot.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you can see the shots happen. You can see his body shake, but it's a little bit harder to see
Mm-hmm.
now, where anyone can just pull out their phone and start recording. This person recording, these people that were recording at the event, they had no idea what they were about to watch. They were probably just recording because they thought, oh, Charlie Kirk's here, let's get a video of him. And then little did they know that shots were going to ring out. And so the first video I saw was from far away, and all you really see, you hardly see anything. All you see is him hit the ground. And I thought, okay, well, he's been shot. He hit the ground. I don't really know where he was shot. He might be okay. Well, then I was watching the news, and some people, just random anons on YouTube, were saying he got shot in the neck. And I thought that might be true. That might not be true. Well, then, unfortunately, I saw the second video. And when I saw that, I told one of my friends reached out to me and said, do you think he's going to survive? I said, humanly speaking, it's impossible. I said, unless Jesus just reaches out his hand and says, be healed, which I'm not going to sit here and dictate what God can and cannot do. But I knew from the way the blood was coming out, I thought that's a very slim chance. And then I thought, too, kind of like what you said about the possibility of being brain dead. Even if he survives, he may be either brain dead or paralyzed or unable to speak for the rest of his life. I mean, it's hard to say. And then, of course, we got the news about maybe 2 hours later that he had passed away and went home to be with our Lord. And I think that something that's worth talking about is, again, some of the reason why it emotionally affected so many people was the fact that anybody could find this video over on Instagram and see it from up close. And like you said, it does hit different from watching like a scene of John Wick where someone gets shot in the throat versus seeing this person that we have seen videos of. I mean, he's 3 years older than you, 4 years older than me, roughly.
No, he's 2. He was 31. I'm 28.
Okay.
So yeah, it was only like even 3. Yeah, 3 to 2 year
2.5,
gap
3
between. Yeah.
And so he's roughly our age.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing videos of him for years. I've never closely followed him. I know who he is. I've known who he is since probably 2017 or 2018. And seeing someone, number one, just get shot is troubling, but also to find out that he ended up dying and left his young family behind is one of the reasons why it's international news. I think that one thing we should at least briefly look at is some other things that we know so far. And I have some other articles. Here's one from the National News Desk, what we know so far, and I accidentally didn't block out his name. Because I don't want to talk about his name. I truly, people like this are such filth that they don't deserve the notoriety. They don't deserve. I mean, we all know whatever it is, Lee Harvey Oswald's name, if that was even his real name when he killed JFK. But some people do crap like this just to make a name for themselves. Just 2 days prior, Kirk was shot and killed as of the writing of this article while he was speaking on stage at an event held at UVU. In a short statement, UVU said, and I'm not going to say his last name, briefly attended the school for one semester in 2021. I don't know about you, but I actually had that thought because I thought if someone was a former student there, they would have an idea of, well, when there's an event at the school, here are some rooms that are not guarded. Here are some rooms that are guarded. Did that go through your head at all?
I mean, someone had to know. That was a good placement. Anybody that has any kind of knowledge any kind of planning. Like this was definitely well thought of, well kind of pseudo planned out. The shot was not in the intended area for what I can tell, but it still ended up being what they wanted to achieve. But yeah, I mean, you had to have at least been there a few times to know that he was going to be in that part of the square or whatever part of campus that was, to be able to find a spot that has a clear enough advantage to be able to make that shot without missing and hitting somebody completely different, hitting hitting the dirt, just going wayward.
I noticed one of the first things I noticed almost right when I saw the first video was that it was only one shot. When I want to say his last name was Crooks tried to shoot at Trump and got him in the ear, he fired maybe 3 or 4 times. Yes. And the closest he got was the ear. He didn't get him anywhere else. And the one thing too that's interesting, so you have the attempted assassination of Trump, July of 2024. Now the successful assassination of Charlie Kirk, September of 2025, almost a year in 2 months. And I thought to myself, the fact that this person could make this shot from 200 yards, and I know that there's people who are capable of making that shot who are not in the military. My first thought was maybe this person was in the military or else was just very proficient with handling firearms. We're going to go into the possibility of this being a paid or military hit to the supporters on Substack. But quickly, did that thought go through your head that you were surprised that this shot happened in just one shot?
Yes and no. I mean, I knew why there was only one shot, because as soon as I saw the clip, I knew that, okay, that's not an AR platform rifle. That was not an AK platform rifle like the other two people were. The first guy in July of last year, that was an AR platform rifle. The second guy at was it Mar-a-Lago's golf course? He was caught with like an SKS style rifle that was like a 7.62 by 39. Those are both semi-auto rifles. That, like, as soon as I heard the shot, I'm like, okay, that's a bolt action. Like, that's a 308 or a 30-06. That's like your standard, easy to acquire, very budget friendly bolt action rifle. It's one of the, everybody says the AR is like the most common rifle in America, and it is for semi-autos, but a bolt action 308 or a bolt action 30-06, especially in Utah, that has a relatively decent hunting group. It has a lot of, you're gonna see a lot of people with bolt action 308s and 30-06s in places like Utah, because it does have good hunting. And just, that's a standard gun for most everybody to get as a first gun or passed down to them from a family member is going to be a bolt action. I don't have a bolt action. I'm one of the few people that I know that doesn't have a bolt action. I don't care for them as much. I don't hunt enough, and I don't hunt away, and I don't hunt deer to need a bolt action. I usually use a shotgun when I'm hunting deer. But that's, rural areas, and especially in states like Utah, yeah, bolt actions are going to probably be a little bit more popular than an AR or AK or any other semi-auto style. And honestly, I thought it had, 50% it was an amateur shot, not a, trained LE or military, because somebody who's trained that way would have probably popped off 3 or 4 shots the same way Oswald did with Kennedy. Like, he used an old Italian Ithaca lever gun, and he was able to get off 3 shots, if I remember the investigation clearly. So the fact it was only 1 shot, the thing that we don't know is he could have got more shots off. It could have been worse. He, from the security stuff, got off the roof as soon as that first shot was fired. So, that maybe that was the goal, was just 1 shot, and let trauma and blood loss work for you. Kind of like I don't know if you played the original Modern Warfare 2, but there was a sniping mission where you used a Barrett 50 cal to take a guy's arm off, and you exfil as soon as you fire the shot, because you think, oh, blood loss is going to kill the guy. Trauma and blood loss is pretty much your second ally as a as a shooter. You don't have to one shot, one kill every time. You hit a vital spot, trauma and bloodlust will do what it does. I think that video, like seeing the up close video, it definitely hits you how fragile the body actually is. We are not as invincible as we think we are sometimes.
Yes.
Because even when I thought he got shot in the chest, I was like, even if he had like a soft body armor on, there's still no guarantee that he wouldn't have had any trauma or some other injury that would have led it to the same scenario we're in.
Yeah, it's hard to say because body armor can either fail or it'll help with the trauma from the bullet. As you know more about body armor than I do. But there's still times where, I mean, it's going to hurt a lot. It's definitely, it might break a rib or what have you, depending on where the bullet hits you. Let's read a little more about the shooter so we can kind of look into a little bit of maybe some of the why he did this. So here we have, citing unnamed sources, the Daily Mail said the shooter is now a student at Dixie Technical College in St. George. So again, he used to go to UVU. He's now left, where he is enrolled in the electrical apprenticeship program. During a news conference, Utah Governor Spencer Cox confirmed the shooter, again, I'm not going to read the name, is from Utah. The Daily Mail says he lives with his family in a 600,000 six-bedroom home. According to Newsweek, the suspect's parents are named Amber and Matt. That's all I'm going to say. Photos on social media appear to show the family smiling together. In one image, Robinson is wearing a cap and gown and embracing his mom. I read the name, sorry. While another shows him out going out to eat with his dad. So he seemed to have had, all that being said, he had family. This guy didn't appear to be someone where he was an orphan or was kicked out of his house for like 2 years or whatever. And I mean, maybe that happened. Maybe eventually the investigation is going to reveal that. Now, something that I wanted to read that I think was is interesting is, I don't know if you've seen this, man. Have you seen that there have been messages printed on some of the bullets that he used or wanted to use?
So that was kind of a interesting topic that I had with the group that I went up to Table Rock with yesterday. Like, old college buddy of mine texted me Friday night and said, "Hey, you want to hike Table Rock with a group of mine from Clemson?" And I'm like, you know what? I need to get out of the house. I haven't trained since Wednesday. I've been in an emotional limbo. I've basically autopiloted through work Thursday, um, and to get through Friday, and kind of autopiloted a lot through Friday too, because it's like there's how are you supposed to react to that? So we went up to Table Rock and we were talking a little bit off and on, and a lot of the stuff that was carved into his shell casings are Helldivers 2 meme culture. Like the arrow design that was in like the third shell casing, that's the input on my controller to drop a 500 kilogram bomb in Helldivers 2. Um, I think the first one was like, if you read this, you're gay, lol, ooh, or whatever. That's a meme online for a lot of games. Like, a lot of it was online meme culture. It wasn't really slogans like, a lot of people were like, oh, he was Antifa, he was this, he was, it's online meme culture. You can go on Reddit or 4chan and find all kinds of memes about that. Like, it's common jokes that people younger than us share online all the time.
Yeah, so kind of go into some of what you're talking about in terms of what was printed on them. One of them, this is from Governor Spencer Cox, said investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the school. The rifle had a scope mounted on top. Messages on a fired bullet casing, so this is likely the one that he sent, says notices bulges. So it's like notices, comma, bulges, comma, OWO, what's this? But there is also 3 unfired casings. And again, I'm going to put my sources up on Substack for anyone who wants to double check this. It's just I'm not going to be reading the name of the shooter unless it's by accident, as you guys know. Inscriptions were also found on 3 unfired casings. The first one read, "Hey, fascist, catch." with an arrow, an up arrow, excuse me, a right arrow, and 3 down arrows. The second one said, "Oh Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao." The third one read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO," which is just kind of like people say stuff like, "If you read this, you are gay" all the time. Like just that's like you
Yeah.
say, kind of like troll meme culture.
Well, the whole reference of Bella Ciao, that is a song that is in a lot of the Helldivers 2 media for like advertisements and stuff. If you go and like look up the reveal trailer for Helldivers 2, that came out. I think that game came out last year. It's only been out for about a year now. That song is playing in the background of the reveal trailer and some of the other media trailers. And then, like I said, the one where he said "catch" and then the arrows, that's dropping the 500 kilogram nuke. So, and again, the "hey fascist catch," that is a, you can go online and find a lot of people saying that as jokes for playing Helldivers 2, because Helldivers 2 is basically a satire of, you're fighting for Super Earth, but Super Earth is really not really kind of a bad guy in a way too. But there's the whole thing is like there are worse threats than a fascist government on Earth, because the Illuminati, the robots, the automatons or whatever they're called, and the big bugs. So it's basically, I mean, it's Warhammer, it's military Warhammer without all the big lore. That's what Helldivers 2 is. So he took stuff that is relevant to our age group, that he took it off the internet. It's not really making that big of a statement. It's like, wait, what is this? It's like, are they trying to, like, what was the point? I like, was he just, another depressed person that, played video games and couldn't, separate reality from fiction? I don't know. It's stupid stuff to engrave on a bullet casing that really doesn't have a meaning. It really doesn't give you any insight to an actual motive. Like it's a joke.
Well, from looking at I thought all of them were, except maybe the "hey fascist catch" one. But then if you're now saying that apparently in Helldivers, which I haven't played either one, maybe not, because that to me sounded like someone repeating the mainstream media's talking points of everyone to the right of Bernie Sanders is the Austrian mustache man painter. I mean, I just kind of assumed when I read that bullet casing inscription, I thought, well, sounds like this guy was politically left wing, but if that's part of that game, maybe not.
We don't know.
It could go either way, I guess, is what I'm saying.
It really could, because the guy, yet again, this is another person that didn't have a big social media presence on their own. Like, all the stuff we've been able to find of him, picture and video wise, are all from his parents' account. Same with the guy last year at the Trump rally. He had no personal social media presence that we could find. It was almost like if he had it, it was scrubbed.
I think he did. I think Crooks actually did have one, but it got removed either by X or by someone pulling the strings at X. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's like, because I've seen several videos where people have pointed out that this is a guy that, like, there's no videos, there's no tweets, there's really nothing to show where he leaned either way.
Right.
Like, was he far right, far left? Was he middle left, middle right? Was he direct middle? Like, what, there's no, like, the only like real video I've seen was, I think you've seen it too, was the video of him from 2021 when he got his scholarship letter from the Utah University. Like, he was so excited to go attend school there. He was getting he got the governor's scholarship for like $35,000 to go attend school at that Utah University. So it makes no sense in the way that we've seen some of these other incidents have, where it's like there's a manifesto, there's been clear-cut threats that were ignored or not taken seriously till it was too late. Like, this was just an out of the blue, like, where did this guy come from type of situation.
Well, and another thing about this guy is, this was something I saw from Newsmax. President Trump tells Rob Schmidt Kirk alleged killer had trans girlfriend. I'll read that briefly. I have the article pulled up. In a revelation that is sure to spark new debate around the shocking assassination of conservative leader Charlie Kirk, Newsmax primetime host Rob Schmidt disclosed Saturday that he was personally informed by both President Donald Trump and FBI Director Kash Patel of a new development in the case. According to Schmidt, authorities have learned that the alleged assassin had been living with and romantically involved with a transgender woman, which would be a biological man who transitioned to appear female. The suspect has been identified as a Utah resident. Authorities say the shooter expressed deep disapproval of Kirk's views and have become more political in the months before the killing. No, but the problem is, so I read this is from Newsmax, but I don't know what this is based on. That's the problem. Like when it says becoming more political, are we talking about someone who is reading political literature? Are we talking about someone who is just watching Charlie Kirk's videos every day and getting more and more angry? Was he watching more stuff on our side of the aisle? Was he watching stuff more likely on the other side, more like Young Turks Kokolinski? I'm not saying that's what he was doing. I'm asking. We don't know. Because so far, all they're saying is that he was getting more political, but they're not, at least yet, showing proof for what? Of what he was viewing and what he thought about things. And like you said, there hasn't been much on social media from this guy's own hand to say what it was going on through his head, other than the inscriptions of the bullets that are just kind of random, weird nonsense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I saw earlier today a couple of Instagram accounts that cover the news. Yeah, they talked about Kash Patel doing his update, and the information about the girlfriend, and I'm like, okay, this is just out of, again, it's like it's out of left field information, because it's like, I mean, I get it, people are private, like not everybody posts all their stuff on social media. I don't post everything that I do on social media, but it's weird that there's no presence, like there's no, like I've yet to see any pictures of them together. I've seen, like, I don't know what this person looks like. I didn't even know this person was dating anybody.
And that's a little weird, yeah.
Like, at first I thought, okay, is this some loner? Like, at first when it happened, I'm like, okay, is this some loner that's had nothing but, Wikipedia, 4chan, type, experience, and it's like they're in an echo chamber and it just grew out of proportion, because we've seen that happen where people are left alone, they feel shunned by the world and have no support, and they go out and express their viewpoint with violence. We've seen that play out in some of these incidences over the last couple of years, but there's nothing. It's like it just all materialized. And I'm not saying the FBI hasn't done a good investigation. I'm not doubting what Kash Patel is saying, but it's like, where? Like, how far deep of a dive did the FBI do on this guy's phone and his computer and stuff to get this stuff? Because it's like, this is like every other day. It's like we're getting some new information. And it's like, where was this before? Like, what? Why can't I just type so and so's name in and find pictures of this person, find more information about his personal life before this happened? It's like it just doesn't exist in the way that we normally see with these people.
Yeah. Changing the topic somewhat, back to Kirk. What was the first video that you think you saw of him, or can you remember?
I want to say my first introduction to him was when I got into Crowder about I want to say 2016, 2017, because that's when I really got more political. Like, I had never been much of a pay attention to politics person growing up. I mean, you and I grew up in the post 9/11 world. We grew up with the global war on terror. Like, we got tired of the news relatively early on in our lives, just seeing nothing but more escalation of war, especially during the Obama era, when it's like we were hoping we were done in the Middle East, and it was like every other month there was an escalation in a different country. And then I think what ultimately radicalized me was Benghazi. I think that was the ultimate kind of final straw. Was, I'd known, being in college, I met a lot of former guys. I met a couple SF guys, a couple Marstock Raiders, a couple of guys like that. They were in there. One of my one of my first college classes, I had a guy who was in Fallujah as a classmate, and it messed him up. Like he was not all there anymore because of what they had seen in Fallujah, that urban fighting. So yeah, I definitely was getting more involved on college. I'm definitely a Stephen Crowder side of the Conservative Party. I don't align myself with Nick Fuentes' side of the group. I was definitely more of in between. I guess I'm more in between Crowder and Kirk. Like I'm in the middle of still a little bit of talking, but willing to get in the trenches and do some violence, to fight back if it is necessary. Whereas Kirk wanted to solve everything by debate and civil discussion. Crowder was more on the side of there's a point where talking doesn't solve anything, so it's time to get your hands dirty.
Well, what do you mean by violence, and what do you mean by getting your hands dirty?
Well, I consider myself a spear. Kirk was a shield. I'm the spear. Is my mentality of eventually, like I've always been under. You can't make peace with evil. It has always been kind of my philosophy as an adult, especially hanging out with people that have come face to face with just absolute pure evil in war. So I've always had that mindset of if something goes wrong, I won't hesitate to fight to meet evil face to face. Like I told you earlier, I'm putting my kit back in my car. I haven't had my rifle and my body armor kit in my car since I got my new car. Because I didn't feel like I needed it. My work has a gate. We have you have to be buzzed in unless you have a badge to get into the building. But you never know what's going to happen when you're just driving to and from work. You're out at the grocery store. You never know. And that was, it's always been my philosophy of, train to be prepared to do it, have the skill and not need to use the skill versus you lack the skill and all of a sudden you're in the trenches, something went down and it's fight or flight.
I think that we need to be clear in our rhetoric here, because I will say there's a lot of people right now after hearing about this who are saying there is no going back to the way things were, and I want to be very clear. So, because I want to say this because, and I'm going to probably make another shorter video when I come back from my break in October from the podcast. But I want to say this here and now. I want to talk right now, because I don't have a big megaphone, but I do have some people listening to me, probably more than I realize. And I want to talk for a minute like one of them is thinking about doing something violent, wanting to do something with a gun. Yeah. And I want to just be very clear, lay down your arms, don't hurt anybody, because this is not the point where we do anything. The thing that we have to remember is we do not hold the levers of power right now.
No.
January 6th was a tour that went wrong. It was not an insurrection. People were let into the building in many situations. They got kind of rowdy. If anything, the security should have said, okay, you guys are acting crazy, you need to get out. Yeah. But instead, people got put in prison and probably would have been there for the rest of their lives.
We always seem to forget that Ashley Babbitt was the only person who actually died, and all she was doing was standing in the public entryway of our Capitol building, and she was gunned down by a Capitol police officer who shouldn't have probably been on the job anymore, because training. Like, you're trained to be able to identify a threat, and a person holding an American flag and being in a group of people that are standing in the public gathering spot of our Capitol building is not a threat that you respond with a bullet through the heart.
Right.
And it is, for the past 4 or 5 years, it's like nobody her name's just been forgotten when you talk about mainstream. It's like everybody wants to talk about the older, close to retirement Capitol police officer that died 2 days later of a heart attack off duty. They tried to blame, January 6th on that. Like, it put extra stress on his heart. He wasn't even on duty the day that happened. And then, of course, all the stuff with Nancy Pelosi that we've, uncovered of her, not listening to anybody about getting National Guard, reinforcements for the rotunda and stuff like that. It was a whole catastrophe of let's see who can blame each other the most. And I don't want we've already seen that kind of happen. We're already playing the, oh, he was this, oh, he was that, oh, it was this side, oh, it was that side. That's not, this should be the point of, it's not sides anymore. Like, I saw a post earlier today that I meant to send you. I'll go back and resend it, but it basically said 2024. I saw that people were willing to take out a presidential candidate. 2025, now I see that they're willing to kill me, because that could have been anybody. Charlie Kirk could have been anybody. That could have been you and me just having a conversation at a coffee shop, and somebody somehow just deciding that because we don't look a certain way, we don't talk a certain way, we have a different opinion, we don't deserve to be able to speak anymore. That is what it's really going to come down to, is on both sides, because I've already seen a lot of the posts about Kirk was the moderate. Now you get us, and it's a lot of German marching is the only way to really put a lot of the videos. It's a lot of old German war, German footage of the SS and stuff like that marching in 1939 Germany. I've been seeing a lot of repostings of English translations of Hitler's speeches. I've seen a lot of Nick Fuentes people basically saying, "You get us now." Milo's back. He's unretired, and you and I grew up when he was. We were getting into politics when he was popular, because one of my first introductions into politics was Steven Crowder, Milo. I cannot remember the woman, and I want to say Kirk was there, but I don't remember him speaking at that event. I think he was doing a different event at the same time, but it was, Milo was getting yelled at by somebody, and Steven Crowder got up and waylaid the person. That was my introduction to modern politics, because we knew politics growing up. If anybody ever had any kind of history class, any kind of civics class, any kind of political class in high school, we knew Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party. We went through all the different stages of different political parties in the United States, but you and I, our generation has not seen this kind of political violence like this. It's been, the 60s was the last time we saw this kind of stuff happen, because JFK was assassinated. A month later, Martin Luther King was assassinated. Shortly after that, Robert Kennedy was assassinated when he was running for a political office. Marilyn Monroe mysteriously died around the same time as well. And then you go back to the 90s, a lot of people forget that they tried to assassinate Bill Clinton in the 90s. Al-Qaeda did. People also forget that in 1995, I want to say either 93 or 95, they tried to set off a bomb in the parking garage of the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
People forget that happened. And of course, the ultimate act of violence that we experienced as a nation was 24 years ago, 9/11. And now we have another September date. Now we have 9/10, because this is basically Pearl Harbor and 9/11 kind of merged together. I want to say, like, this, the type of just feeling that you get from it, because it's no one of those, you're just in shock. Because it's one thing to see a political leader. It's one thing to see somebody take a shot at a political leader like that. We've seen that throughout our history. We've seen that throughout the history of other nations, that political leaders have a target on their back and people will take shots at them. They tried to kill Nixon, or not Nixon, Reagan. They shot Reagan. Mm-hmm. That was I think before Trump, that was the last president that was attempted assassination was on for America. You go look at South America, you go look at Mexico, you go look at across the pond in Europe. That kind of stuff happens every once in a while. It's nothing really new for human history. It's been that way since Julius Caesar's time and before that. I mean, he was killed by his own friends of the Senate. That was kind of that was one of the biggest on that we can find a record of biggest political assassinations ever was Julius Caesar. But when it's somebody, this to me, what this reminds me of, this reminds me when Socrates, he had his trial in ancient Greece and he chose to kill himself instead of letting the Greek Senate kill him because he was a voice of the people. He was a poet. He was not a senator. He was not really a political leader, really, so to speak. He was a poet, a scholar who educated other people, and Plato as well. Plato was his protege. So it hits different when it's somebody that it could have been anybody. You see all these videos in London, South Korea now, Japan, now even in America with some of the other political commentators on Instagram. It's the I am Charlie Kirk. It reminded me of the Spider-Man stuff. It's like anybody can be Spider-Man. Spider-Man is anyone. It could be anybody. And now it's like Kirk's the same way. Anybody could have been Charlie Kirk on either side. Because just as much as that happened to Charlie Kirk, with how bad it is, with how bad social media is, I could see this happening to somebody on the left. This could happen to Cenk Uygur. This could happen to what's that guy on Twitch, Hassan. This could have been Hassan. Like we could be talking about someone on completely opposite of our beliefs having this happen to them. It just shows that we have a disconnect with morality, with morals, with just human nature. It's like we don't care anymore. And seeing people's reactions online just completely solidified that for me, because here I am at home, not able to go train. I missed team training. I was supposed to go to team venom training Friday. I couldn't go. Like, I was not in the headspace to train. I couldn't focus. And here I am watching people younger than me on a platform making money off of the platform while I'm working my butt off at a job, like a normal person, not talking about this stuff at work, not, getting into arguments with people, celebrating this. And it's like, I never thought I'd see it. I never thought I'd see it from normal people. It's one thing to see a news media. Like, we've been dealing with CNN and mainstream media doing stupid stuff for the past 10 years. Just noticeable. They've been doing it forever, but it's like, it's more noticeable now since 2015. But then it's like you get on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and even Twitch, and it's like, you and I are the same. Like, these people that are celebrating, it's like, we're the same. We're the middle class. We're college students. We're blue collar workers. We're retail workers. We're this and that. It's like, we're not politicians. They're supposed to say mean things about each other to try and get elected or to try to prove a point. We're normal people. We're supposed to be normal people that just go about our lives, and if we want to talk about it with each other, we talk about it, but we just leave each other alone at the end of the day, because we all want to go home and relax and do what we want to do until it's time to go back to work or it's time to go back to school. We just, we lost that ability to just be able to, I agree to disagree with you. If we want to pick it up, we can, but I think, if we can't reach some kind of a middle ground, we just drop the subject and move on. That time is gone now, because we're left with who's going to fill Charlie's shoes, because we got Nick Fuentes, you got Andrew Tate, you got Milo, and like, do we really want those three people to be the new spokesperson for the conservative movements? Because Nick is extreme. Like, he is very extreme when it comes to how he feels about how the country should be, how he feels about the conservative movement. He's, even Crowder doesn't really have anything to do with Nick. Charlie didn't really want anything to do with Nick. Before Milo retired, he was pretty radical. Andrew Tate has been extremely radical in a lot of his viewpoints. Now that he's kind of gone from being a masculinity guru to a political commentator. I'm trying to think of some other people. There were a couple other names I had this like that are.
I'll just say that I don't think any of those people can or necessarily want to fill Charlie Kirk's shoes. I'm getting a little bit of an echo. But I'll say this. I think that someone who can do a little bit more to fill Kirk's shoes in terms of the kind of thing Kirk was doing would be someone more like, and a lot of people don't like him, and I'm one of them, is Ben Shapiro. Because Shapiro will go to colleges and talk to young people, kind of like what Kirk did. Now, another thing, you mentioned Crowder. I know you like Crowder. Crowder will also go do the change my mind stuff. That's a little bit similar to, I think, what Kirk was doing was called Prove Me Wrong.
Yeah, it was Turning Point USA's Prove Me Wrong, and they would go to campuses. They pretty much went anywhere, but a lot of it was mainly college campuses. He was actually, I don't know if you remember, but he was actually at Clemson sometime late last year, and I kind of regret not going now because I kind of was like, oh, I'm not a college student. It's probably not for me. I should have went.
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned several things. You mentioned the media and also the reaction to all this. So two things are true at the same time. Violence is not acceptable or okay. People need to be peaceful. They should also be prepared, which I think is what you're preaching. Yeah. You are saying be prepared to be peaceful, but to defend yourself if something bad does happen. And I completely agree with that message. We should not be the ones on the attack. We should not be the ones provoking. We should be peaceful. But if someone does come and attack you, we should not be soft targets. That's A. B, this is something I sent to a group chat of some friends. I sent a picture of Donald Trump with blood on his face, then a picture of Charlie Kirk sitting in a seat, and I said, it turns out when you call people on the right racist, KKK, fascist, and Nazi, it's only a matter of time before a crazy person picks up a gun. We do not have freedom of speech in America, or freedom of association in America. If you do or say the wrong thing, the communist and communist sympathizers on the left try to kill you. It should be illegal to be a leftist in America. We win by making them illegal and taking their guns and rights. Otherwise, you and your family are not really safe. This is the way that I feel, and I think a lot of people are starting to feel this way. What I want ultimately is to have a peaceful separation. Because at this point, if you're going to refuse to live by the Bill of Rights, if you're going to say the Constitution was written by a bunch of crusty old white racist men, then at this point I would say you don't really belong in this country. You can go, and I wish you well, but be in your own country. And if you want to disarm me, if you want to make it where I can't speak out, and if you want to imprison people, as this is going to like the United Kingdom, over edgy jokes, then I think you should be in your own country. And again, I'm not saying we need to force them out at the point of a gun. We should not do that. We should have a peaceful, by law, legal separation from them. And I think a lot of people, some people feel that way. Some people think that it should be by force. And because here's the thing, and people have said this for years now, what do we have in common with these people? We really don't have anything. They believe that Joseph McCarthy trying to decommunize our government and to a degree Hollywood as well was on a witch hunt when there's documentation proving that he was right, that there were over 200 Stalinists in FDR's government agencies. I mean, this is a fact.
Well, look at how quickly they got rid of Nixon.
Well, that's the other thing.
Like you can't convince me that was not a conspiracy by the deep state to get rid of Nixon because he was winning Nam without escalating the war in Nam. He was upholding promises to the American people to get us out of Nam, bring the boys home, and then what happens? Watergate. Who gets put in charge of him later? A guy that escalates the war further. A guy that breaks every promise the Nixon government made to people as a Republican. And before him, they had FDR, who was winning Vietnam without escalating it much. We
FDR had World War II, not Vietnam.
Or no, or JFK. I meant JFK. Look at JFK.
Oh, no, LBJ was Vietnam.
Well, that's what I'm saying. JFK was keeping the war small by upholding our agreement to the South Vietnamese government,
right?
While he was also working to better the American way of life. He was working with the civil rights movement. He's gone. What happens? LBJ comes in. Well, LBJ created all of these, well, not all of them, but a lot of these government programs that we are still talking about to this day. FDR also created a lot of these government programs that we're still talking about today that were supposed to be temporary. A lot of these programs that we are still funding should have gone away after the Great Depression. They were put in as temporary measures to help the American people, supposedly. And yet, as we've gotten further away from that era, the more we deep dive FDR, the more we deep dive JFK, the more we deep dive Lyndon Johnson. They've been treated like slush funds for the government to basically keep spending money and keep doing whatever they want. And then we wonder why the American people can't get anywhere. But then every time someone starts to point it out, or someone starts to try to be like, hey, we have some common ground. Maybe we should at least come to the table with each other and deal with our common enemy, and then we can debate each other and figure out what to do about our different opinions. They get removed in some capacity, whether it be a legal capacity with Nixon. They impeached him to purge the government of all of his cabinet and stuff, or be it through violence. JFK's assassination, Martin Luther King's assassination, Robert Kennedy's assassination. Now we got Charlie Kirk. Like, what, when is it going to be where we stop playing the game the way they want us to play it, start playing by our own rules?
That's
because
right.
Nick Fuentes is kind of falling for what they want, because of a lot of what he said recently is just playing right to the hands. He's going to keep people at each other's throats, and it's like, well, now we're just playing the game again, because the more we focus on yelling at each other, fighting each other, which we aren't really fighting each other. I mean, look what happened with George Floyd. They burned down multiple cities, multiple areas. Not a single building has been set on fire since Charlie Kirk was killed. Not a single police officer has been assaulted in some kind of violent protest since that happened. What have we done? We've had vigils, rallies, gatherings in public spaces that are legal. And look at what's happened around the world. Korea put its flags at half-mast to go with us for Kirk. Japan has had all kinds of stuff going on with him. England today, or yesterday, had a huge rally of over 1,000 people. And it's like, it shows the difference in the mentality. We are willing, we get closer as a community, as conservatives, as Christians. But on the other side, when someone dies, George Floyd died. That's sad. That's a life. But he wasn't a good person. He didn't die doing anything heroic. He died being stupid and died being on drugs. But they burned Baltimore down. They burned that city down where he was. They burned Atlanta. Burned when that guy was on drugs and police officers were killed in the Wendy's parking lot. They burned a whole Wendy's down over a drug addict who got into an argument at 3 a.m. with a police officer because he was sleeping in the drive-thru of Wendy's. We are not the same. Group-wise, movement-wise, it is not. It is not the same.
That's my point. We can't coexist with this. I mean, this is fire and water. I mean, neither side can coexist at this point. I think that the problem that we have is, for people to exist in the country, we need to have commonality of language, but also culture. And this is just more and more polarizing, and there's no way to unify it at this point. Trump has tried to do it along like class lines and say, oh, I'm going to do what's best for the American people on economic terms. And he's called a racist and a fascist and so on. And to a point, it comes to the point where anytime anyone talks about doing something with bipartisan support, I think that that's a fantasy. I think that really what it comes down to is we're going to have to take their power and not hurt people, but force them out of our country. And it's probably going to be along state lines where maybe we kick them out into California and kick them out of the country. Places like that. It's going to basically be red and blue are going to be two separate countries long term.
I mean, we're looking at basically the same kind of discussions that were happening in the 1800s, and we saw what happened with that when we tried to have a split. We fought each other. We fought one of the most horrendous wars in American history against each other. Well, I'm not saying that some of the stuff that the South wanted to split over was morally correct, but it wasn't illegal. Like the whole thing that people don't seem to understand is that a lot of the southern states that broke away, it wasn't illegal to do what they wanted to keep going in those states. The federal government tried to step in and say, well, we say it is, so you're going to stay in the American, you're going to stay in the United States and you're going to follow it. But no legislation was ever put in. Like, no, right. Up until Lincoln came into power, which was after the Civil War had already broke out for the most part, he was the one that was calling for federal laws to be put in about slavery and that, regulating that kind of stuff. But, again, it got to the point where you couldn't talk to people. People were dead set in their ways. You had a rich elite in the South, because here's what people don't seem to understand. Me and you, we would have been in the front lines of the Civil War in the Confederacy, but our families never owned slaves. We were not plantation owners. We weren't rich. We weren't rich in that capacity. The people that wanted to keep this, the thing going, keep it the same old on the plantations and stuff, they barely fought. They just funded it.
It was rich people on both sides, though.
You
had the rich.
Well, that was the other thing. You had rich industrialists,
right,
on the northern side who wanted to destroy the textiles, who wanted to basically what we have now, where everything's made in a factory. You're barely working outside. You're not really doing manual labor anymore. You're working in a factory, assembling stuff. We're not really growing stuff anymore. We're not taking care of our bodies the way we used to. We've been sold a lie that we're supposed to go work under incandescent lights without sunlight for 10, 12 plus hours, and it's supposed to be okay.
Right.
That's always been my whole thing, is people everybody gets stuck on the nuance of the Civil War was about slavery. And I'm like, that was a point, but that wasn't the whole picture. And yet again, with Kirk, it's like, I think a lot of us are missing the big picture. We're being tunnel visioned into a box of, it was this, this, and this, but it also was this line of stuff too.
I really do believe that the media has figurative, not literal, blood on their hands. Because, again, of what I said and with that message that I said about how they label... 10
years of being berated in national headlines for having a different opinion. You didn't have to be a conservative. If you were a center left, if you were a traditional liberal, if you were a traditional Democrat, you were still a grassroots Democrat who's still... like, okay, I'm a Christian, but I'm Democrat. I disagree with this, but I agree with a libertarian Republican on this side of it, especially if it was a constitutional issue. Like, if you're a Democrat and you're like, well, I'm against red flag laws. I'm against limiting your Second Amendment by just having a judge be told, hey, this person's mentally incompetent, but we don't have any proof of it. We just don't want him or her to have any guns. And an activist judge says, oh, okay, that's fine, and signs the paper. The cops can knock on your door, basically confiscate your guns for months, if not years, by the time, for however long it takes you to get before a judge to prove whether you're mentally competent or not. You are the villain. You are the enemy. It is basically, the Democrat Party is split between your Che Guevara, your South American style communism, socialist liberalism, and your traditional American liberalism. And the Republican Party, on the other hand, is split between true grassroots conservatism and your neoconservatism, your corporatized conservatism. Because let's face it, we laughed at the movies from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s that basically said the corporations run the world. We all laughed at those sci-fi movies and said, oh, that's just fiction. There's no way. more and more now you're seeing that it's like, yeah, corporations suck. Like, because it's like the media is like, it's all owned by the four big corporations. Fox News is Disney, CNN, and some, and the others are, the GE or something like that. Time Warner. It's like these companies own the media. These big companies own media companies. They own television companies. They own comic books now. So Disney owns Marvel. One of the subsidiaries that owns CNN, I think, also is a co-owner. Yeah, Time Warner is an owner of DC. I don't know about Image. I don't know about like Dynamite and Boom Studios, like the other, the little bit smaller comic studios, but the big two of American comics, DC and Marvel. Go back and look at their stuff from 2012 to now, and they got super political. That's why I can't read modern comics now. Can't read the X-Men anymore. Can't read the Avengers anymore. Can barely read Justice League now. Um, couldn't read a lot of the new Green Lantern stuff because it's like they're just throwing stuff in there, and it's like they're taking escapism and forcing us to have real world politics, and then we wonder why stuff like this happens. Why is he using Helldivers 2 stuff in a politically motivated potentially assassination? It's like, because we can't have escapism anymore. We used to be able to say that's fiction, that's reality, that's for entertainment, this is real life. Now it's like watching a WWE show in real life. It's like the line of what is real and what is staged, what is fiction is just, it's that thin now. It's like a microscopic line of what is real, what is fake, what is staged, what is true.
Let's go ahead and get ready to talk to the Substack
Yeah.
supporters. Other than Instagram, is there anything else you want to plug?
Nah, I only got the one Instagram.
Go to Instagram, guys, and follow Samuel. It's Taekwondo_cowboy. You can see him talk about martial arts over there and also just other updates that he has. Every now and then he'll talk about other things. A lot of it's martial arts. So make sure you go follow him there. We're going to continue the conversation over on Substack. If this episode has piqued your interest, you really need to go over to thefogandthewhirlwind.substack.com/subscribe. You can listen to me continue to have a conversation with Samuel about other interesting topics that I don't talk about out here publicly. So make sure you go over there. You can also become a supporter and get my newsletter and join the Telegram group chat and talk to the community. Also, make sure that you follow me on social media. Pretty much everywhere right now, it's Fog and Whirlwind. So Telegram, my public feed is t.me/Fog and Whirlwind. X or Twitter is @Fog and Whirlwind. Instagram is Fog and Whirlwind. Gab is also @Fog and Whirlwind. Make sure you're pressing the like button on this episode. And if you're watching or listening to this on Spotify or YouTube, make sure that you comment, and if it's interesting, funny, or weird, I may read it during my next episode. Thank you so much again for your support, and we'll see you in the next episode. God bless.